Arizona's sun sparkles on the side of this community's lifeline, the shiny 6,000-gallon neighborhood water truck. But in just days, in this house, the water could stop flowing.
Oh, honey, yeah. We are down to the wire right now.
What is going to happen with the neighbors when the water runs out?
That's an unknown. I think Hunger Games?
Karen Nabity jokes, but a town running out of water in the American West is now a reality.
We are in the Rio Verde foothills.
It's real for Lee Harris and John, the water truck driver, as well.
Thousands, actually, of people in the Rio Verde foothills area.
It's kind of hard to nail down exactly how many people live here because it's not an official city. And that's the problem.
As I'm hooking up here, I'm hooking up to the city of Scottsdale.
John pays $15,000 each month to use this city pipe. But in a megadrought, water is worth way more than money.
Come January 1st, these pipes are going to be off.
That's just days away. Scottsdale can no longer afford to give up 50 million gallons a year. And Maricopa County Supervisor Tom Galvin said no to the neighborhood forming their own water service.
And unfortunately, some people saw that as an extra layer of government. And they had moved out here to escape that government structure.
And ultimately, it's going to be my decision, and many of you will not be happy with the decision.
He tells the Weather Channel, in part, there were several other options that were preferable for the Rio Verde foothills community. The mayor of Scottsdale has been adamant that he is opposed to that deal. Basically, Karen in the neighborhood blames the county. The county blames the city. And the city, well...
It was shut down by Maricopa County supervisors.
They're not part of the city. They're not a taxpayer in the city.
Yes, they are not taxpayers. They are outside of the city's limits. Their government entity is Maricopa County.
Lee has resorted to capturing desert rainwater.
Every drop that comes off that flat roof.
It flows into the tubs, then into, fittingly, Arizona iced tea water bottles. They actually last the longest out here, so she can at least flush the toilets.
It's not potable.
Yeah, you can't drink that. Sure, some people have working wells, but...
Wells are going dry.
The next source of water exists, but it is very far away from these thirsty rooftops. You see those mountains back there? In fact, the furthest away mountain, that's the source of water. If you're driving there in a water truck, that could take 3 to 4 hours round trip. And you can only hold so much each run. Are there other communities like this throughout the West?
There are. We're the first ones to walk the plank.
We don't have water January 1st right now at all. Whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. And let me tell you, this fight is turning into a war.
Water, the most basic necessity for life. 20-plus years into a megadrought, the 7-state area that depends on the Colorado River is facing an uncertain future.
It doesn't produce as much water as it did 100 years ago when some of the original law of the river was created.
John Kamik is the head of Tucson Water. Unlike other cities in the desert Southwest, Tucson is actually in a position of strength right now, having banked an incredible 5.5 years worth of reserve drinking water from the Colorado River.
So this is what it's called an aquifer recharge basin.
Tucson has been taking their leftover allotment from the Colorado River and sinking it back into the ground for the last 22 years.
Aquifer banking has been a big deal for us in Tucson and globally. So we're not unique, but the fact that the size that Tucson does it is one of the larger ones in the country.
The process is simple. As the water trickles through the layers of sand and rock, it becomes filtered on its way to the underground aquifer, where it is stored for future use. Sharon Megdell is a water policy expert at the University of Arizona. She says Tucson had the foresight to start banking water after a water scare in the early 90s.
Tucson water leaders like to say, and I think they're right in saying, we probably have one of the most secure systems, for delivering water, because not only do they have that 5.5 years, but they also have all that pumping capacity in place.
The other part of the equation is using the same process to recycle water, first filtering and purifying it before it eventually becomes non-potable water used for irrigation, or, in this case, a beautiful urban wildlife habitat, the Sweetwater wetlands.
This is what's so important, to be able to recharge every single drop, right?
This is a way to use the earth as a bank account for water management. Using that water that you have, that you paid for, that you used in the community once, where you bring it back here, you put it into these basins, you put it back into the aquifer.
Size, scope, and early adoption make this southwestern town a water management leader. In fact, delegates from water-stressed countries as far away as Israel, Australia, and South Africa have come here to learn more.
What a helpless feeling. You've got all these bills coming in and you have no water. It is the most helpless feeling you can ever imagine.
Losing the ability to feed your family is devastating. It's soul-crushing, even for the most positive-minded, hardest workers.
But farmers are such optimistic people. You think, it's got to start raining. It's just got to. And you just want to hang in there because you want to farm. This is what we know.
But here in Arizona, and up and down the dry Colorado River for that matter, you'll find countless people of the land like Nancy K. Wood.
How much cotton used to be out here?
When my granddad was farming, the whole farm was in cotton.
Really?
Yeah. He saw probably times of drought, but not mega drought, not like we're experiencing.
This is where the mega drought gets real. Right here on an 80-acre family farm. This is Nancy's irrigation channel. It should be full right now.
You have to take it when they tell you.
But the entire Colorado River system is so dry, even with the recent rains.
We should get 8 to 10 cuttings a year. We only got 2 cuttings in 2021.
There's been big water cutbacks for Arizona farmers. In 2022, her harvest was half of what it should have been. Right now, 1/3 of her farmland has nothing growing on it. It's fallow.
This is what it looks like when Arizona farmland dries up because there is just not enough water to go around. The only crop or plant that is growing here is right here. Literally tumbleweed. This is what it's come to.
I didn't get a PhD in water. I actually have a PhD in economics, demand and supply. There are numerous ways to adjust demand.
Dr. Sharon Megdahl says farming the desert is still possible, but we may all end up paying more for food and fiber grown in America where it actually grows during the winter, like Nancy's farm.
I know that it is a desert and it's arid, but we really need to farm.
At the same time, we're looking at less water. We're looking at greater demand for food in the world.
We're going to start seeing food shortages if we don't get out of this drought.
Some farmers who just can't pay the water bill have had a visit from someone with a big check and plans for a solar farm. That happened next door to Sharon's farm.
They don't necessarily need the water. They need the land for the solar panels.
And people are selling.
Yes.
There really is no happy ending here. Sharon's source of water is a reservoir that just isn't filling up the way it used to.
People had hoped that we would rebound and we'd have some good wet years and we'd be able to refill the storage in the reservoir, but we're not experiencing that.
There's no point in planting it when there's no water available to us.
In the meantime, in the hard times, some families will have to sell their land as tumbleweed takes over in the dry desert of southern Arizona.
This is like an Old West postcard.
There you go. It's very picturesque,
There is a reason why when you think of the desert, you're probably thinking of this particular kind of cactus.
This is the Saguaro cactus.
That's the emoji.
Right, there's an emoji for us.
Right? I mean, if you want a cactus emoji, you got to go with the saguaro.
But now, the symbol of desert Southwest survival,
It's not uncommon to see him get to 150 or older.
is in danger.
I think it's drought stress.
This one's dead.
Oop, careful.
All that's left is the skeleton.
I love saguaro ribs.
Did you know they have a skeleton?
They all have these wooden structures.
So we're here doing an autopsy on this cactus that
Right.
didn't make it.
That passed away 10 years ago.
Meet the cactus doctor, Peter Breslin from the University of Arizona's Desert Laboratory.
Why are there so many big cactuses on this hill?
That's a great question. We're still kind of trying to figure that out.
And Andy Fisher.
I had to wear my Miss Frizzle earrings today.
From Saguaro National Park in Tucson.
The park was set aside in 1933 specifically for science and specifically to look at this cactus.
For 60 years now, the park and the school have been counting.
Last count was about 1.6 million individual cactus.
And measuring these
26 feet tall,
armed and dangerous plants every 10 years.
And this is what we're doing for about 4,000 individuals.
The last time they counted the cacti, there were 1,300 new babies on this hill.
The problem is we're not finding any new ones right now.
We don't see as many young ones as we would like to see.
This time around, they found less than 200.
How old is this one?
It's really hard to say.
I would say this one's probably about 15 years old.
In Saguaro world, 15 years is a baby. They don't even sprout their first arms until they're at least 80. The problem could be an invasive plant called bufflegrass.
So there's new competition now.
It seems like a lot of competition on the ground.
But it also burns.
And the saguaros are not adapted to those hot fires.
There's another problem. Despite their prickly demeanor, this cactus is quite sensitive to a desert climate that's been changing.
It seems like cacti, right? Boom, they would love climate change. You know, they'd be like, yes, you know, it's warmer, whatever. But actually, saguaros are very narrowly adapted to a particular set of conditions.
And as those conditions change, the keystone species that has been quietly keeping this ecosystem in check for centuries is not reproducing like it should.
When you remove the keystone, the whole arch falls.
And that's the real concern. As the old ones age out, there may not be enough new ones to provide shade, shelter, food, and water to animals, not humans.
So there's water inside here, but
yes,
water that I cannot drink.
So most folks would get sick.
This mystery is in no way solved, but a drought that's bad enough to stress out a giant cactus is a thorn in the side of these scientists they can no longer ignore. Okay, they're not thorns, they're modified leaves, but you get it.
So this provides some shade on that flesh, especially in the summertime.
In the Sonoran Desert, Dave Malkoff, The Weather Channel. It is the party hole on the PGA Tour, the par 3 16th at the TPC Scottsdale.
This is amazing!
Known for its celebratory atmosphere, the course looks a lot different in the days leading up to the tournament. But the bright green grass is ready. Director of Agronomy Brandon Reese says water management is key here in the desert.
Our industry is, especially in this part of the country, is trying to be really progressive in how we're managing our water and using our water.
A golf course can easily use several million gallons of water each week. So where is the water coming from in the drought-stricken Southwest?
It's a limited resource. So, you know, we've gone to reclaim water use.
For the last 25 years now, we have been capturing City of Scottsdale's wastewater and treating it to a level that we can reuse it, meaning for turf irrigation.
David Walby, a director at Scottsdale's water campus, says the TPC is one of 23 local courses that have contracts with the city. According to the USGA, only 13% of golf courses around the country use reclaimed water for irrigation.
The idea was to offer up a distribution system, a reclaimed water distribution system, Purple Pipe, to have a capacity of 20 million gallons.
Powerful pumps take the reclaimed water the city supplies throughout the course and boom, a sustainable drink for thirsty grass. The TPC's next step is reducing their water footprint.
So Brandon, you're saying there's parts of the golf course where it goes from fluffy grass to desert landscape now because you're pulling up the grass?
Right, so we'll take an area that's out of play, that doesn't affect the way that the golf course is played. Yeah. This is part of our long-term plan, where we actually remove the turf and convert to Sonoran Desert.
The goal is about a 10% reduction in grass on this 250-acre green oasis in the desert.